Remember, get that meeting. Talk about that meeting.
That's right.
Hey, John, it says emergency passage, but it's in the wrong place.
Yeah, that'll work.
So you just make a motion. Make a motion. Okay. Do I do that at the end then? Yeah.
Okay. Chair will call the March 3rd, 2020 meeting of the City Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Will do. Alderman Redpath.
Here.
Alderman Gregory.
Here.
Alderwoman Turner.
Here.
Alderman Fulgenzi.
Here.
Alderman Proctor. Alderwoman DeCenso.
Present.
Alderman McMiniman.
Here.
Alderwoman Connolly. Alderman Donlin.
Here.
Alderman Hanauer.
Here.
Mayor Langfelder.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, a quorum is present.
Thank you. Is there a motion to allow Alderwoman Conley and Alderwoman Turner to join us by phone remotely?
So moved.
Second.
We moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Treasurer Busher acknowledged that the Capital Area Realtors Leadership Academy is here. So if you'd like to stand up and be recognized, we'd appreciate it. We appreciate all you do for our community. Thanks for being here. I think you picked a good meeting to come to, by the way of the agenda. We'll see, though.
Just jinxed us. Don't jinx us.
That's right. Chair will entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the February 18th, 2020 City Council meeting and approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion to incorporate the pre-council first reading of ordinances into the record of this City Council meeting.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to incorporate the...
If I can make a point of parliamentary procedure.
Sure.
We received, prior to this meeting, I believe about 4:45, an email from you related to the veto of agenda item 2020-060. And my question to Corporation Counsel is it appropriate for us as a council to consider whether to override the veto or not at our next council meeting, which would be in 2 weeks?
That is correct. You had asked me that question earlier. I did have an opportunity to look at it,
right.
And the proper procedure would be for the council to take the matter up the next regularly scheduled meeting following the date that the meeting at which you received it.
And then it would be on the posted agenda as well.
That is correct.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to incorporate the pre-council reading of the consent agenda into the record of the City Council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion to place the consent agenda on final passage.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open.
Alderman Connolly, how do you vote? Yes. Alderwoman Turner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the consent agenda passes, 9 voting yes, none voting no, and none voting present. Agenda number 2017-103, 2018-110, 2019-008, 2019-276, 2019-430, 2020-049, 2020-057, and 2020-067 remain tabled during committee. Is there any action on any of those? Next item on the agenda is 2020-080, an ordinance to decrease the number of Class C liquor licenses by one, and to increase the number of Class B liquor licenses by one for FKG Oil Company doing business as Motor Mart located at 610 South Grand Avenue. The chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2020-080 on final passage.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion?
Discussion, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman McMiniman.
Well, first of all, I'm a yes vote on this ordinance. Last week, when I placed it on debate, there were some recent incidents that prompted that. One had to do with on Friday night, February 22, there were shots fired 50 feet from Ward 7 on West Isles. And one individual went to the hospital in critical condition, and a second individual also went to the hospital. And so the issue of crime was on my mind. And then several days later, there was another shooting incident. Cars going down MacArthur, then ended up on South Park Street. There was concern that there might have been some relationship. So when we had this ordinance to change the liquor license for packaged liquor for spirits, for hard liquor, from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., I thought it was an appropriate time to look to see what our policies are and to think about what's happening across the whole city. So I had not had the statistics or the information last Tuesday. So by putting it on debate agenda, it gives you time to look into the situation and gather up the facts. You know, the facts, that's number one in the decision-making process. Learn what the facts are. And so in talking with Todd Oliver, our liquor administrator, he informs that we have 69 B package liquor licenses, which is what is being requested here, and we only have one 10 p.m. packaged liquor that includes beer, wine, and hard liquor. So basically what this petition is asking for is what everybody else has already. Now, so I don't think it's appropriate to pick on the very first and only one that's recently asking for a 1 a.m. package hard liquor license. But I do think this raises a question about what the city's policies might or could be, and that's for another day. I think, generally speaking, when someone goes out to buy packaged liquor at 1 in the morning or midnight, oftentimes they're going to drink it that night because that's why they're out to get it. And liquor does oftentimes create drunkenness, fights, disagreements, assaults, batteries, and that kind of thing. And I'm not suggesting that this particular establishment is encouraging that or participating in that, but in the past, this council has had really good discussions about 3 a.m. tavern licenses, and we've had discussions about whether in the package stores we wish to allow, you know, the one-can sales to take place, or the airline 3-ounce bottles and that kind of thing. And we've made restrictions along those lines. And we've had good discussions in this council about those kinds of issues because we don't want to promote single shop purchases that, you know, someone walks down the alley and throws a bottle or, you know, whatever. So that was the reason behind putting it on debate. And I think, generally speaking, anyone on the council should feel the liberty and the safety to put something on debate if they want to, and we should respect. And these debates about whether we put it on consent or debate are really unnecessary. I think anyone that wants to put it on debate should just be allowed to do so without, you know, any drama associated with it. So, Mr. Mayor, I just want to explain that to the other aldermen.
Okay. Any other discussion? Alderwoman DeCenzo.
I would just like to point out that we live in a global economy now. Not everyone works 9 to 5. Some people work 12 to 12. Some people work 8 to 1 and don't get off, 1 o'clock in the morning is when they get off work and they want to stop on their way home and pick up some alcohol. So I just think we need to be open-minded about the world has changed and the way people consume whatever they consume has changed as well. So we are not, it's not the 1920s anything anymore. It's just we're living in a different time, and not everyone's on the same schedule. So I don't think that if someone buying alcohol at 1 a.m. has ill intent. Maybe they're finishing out their day or their week, and they want to go stop and get a drink. And I do agree with you, Alderman, that it shouldn't be a big deal if someone wants to put something on debate. But I also think you need to consider the home alderman in that, in these kinds of discussions, if they've talked to other people about it and if they know their neighborhoods. And when I've done my ride-alongs with the SPD, this is where we always stop. And I asked once, I said, why are we stopping here? They said, well, they have the cleanest bathrooms. So you can go by there at any time of the day or night, and you will see a Springfield police presence at this particular gas station because there's nice bathrooms. And now you can pick up some alcohol, too, not you guys on duty. So, I think we need to learn to respect each other's wards and neighborhoods and that sort of thing as well.
I was wondering where they hang out.
That's where they hang out.
Alderman Donlin?
Thank you, Mayor. To the ordinance, if I can ask, I'll say the sponsor, I assume it's Alderwoman. So what I hear you saying is that they presently sell alcohol at this establishment. Are you aware of any opposition at all?
No, not the neighborhood association, which I spoke at last night. Not, the owners asked for this.
I intend to support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the ordinance, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. The voting is now open.
Alderman Turner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Conlon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the ordinance passes 8 voting yes, none voting no, 1 voting present. Next item on the agenda is 2020-082, an ordinance approving the reappointment of Pete Roberts to the Springfield Disabilities Commission. Chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2020-082 on final passage.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open.
Alderwoman Turner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderwoman Connolly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the ordinance passes 9 voting yes, none voting no, none voting present. Next item on the agenda is 2020-083, an ordinance approving the reappointment of Jill Steiner to the Springfield Disabilities Commission. Chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2020-083 on final passage.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open.
Alderwoman Turner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Alderwoman Connolly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the ordinance passes 9 voting yes, none voting no, none voting present. Next item on the agenda is 2020-084, an ordinance approving the reappointment of Elizabeth Langen to the Springfield Disabilities Commission. Chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2020-084 on final passage.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, do you see any of the reappointments here in the chambers tonight in case they wish to be recognized?
Are any of the individuals being appointed tonight here? I don't think they are.
Okay.
They're reappointments, though, so. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open.
Alderwoman Turner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Alderwoman Connolly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. 2 yeses, Mayor.
Thank you. And the ordinance passes 9 voting yes, none voting no, none voting present. Next item on the agenda is 2020-089, an ordinance authorizing condemnation of real property for the purpose of constructing usable segment 5 of the Springfield Rail Improvement Project for the Office of Public Works. Chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2020-089 on final passage.
So moved.
Moved. Is there a second? Moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open.
Alderwoman Turner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Alderwoman Connolly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. 2 yeses, Mayor.
And the ordinance passes 9 voting yes, none voting no, and none voting present. Alderman Redpath?
Wasn't the Hilltop condemnations on there too, from the first reading?
I think those were on consent. Were those put on consent?
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mayor.
Alderman Hanauer.
At the request of CWLP, ordinance 2020-093, It's set, it's written for emergency passage in first reading. It should have probably been moved up. I think it was just a clerical error, but I make a motion that we push this to emergency passage.
Second.
Been moved and second for 2020-093, which is an ordinance authorizing the repair of boiler feed pump motor for Unit 4 from the Illinois Electric Works, Inc., in an amount not to exceed $123,985 for the Office of Public Utilities for emergency passage. And seconded. Any discussion?
John, you want to explain what's going on, please?
One of our two boiler feed pump motors on Unit 4 failed about 2 weeks ago. We tripped offline. We opened it up, did some testing, saw that we had a short inside that motor. Had to get it repaired, so we sent out for an initial inspection to see what the problem was and to verify the short. In order to get the repairs done in a timely manner, we're asking for emergency passage. It's about a 17 to 18 working day or calendar day repair, and we don't want to wait 2 weeks to get to the point where we can say, okay, now you can start on it, and then take another 18 days for the repair. By doing an emergency passage, we can get their motor back, get it installed, and have the unit back at full load immediately at that time. It's about a 70 megawatt decrease in load right now. The unit is offline currently, not because of this, it's just that it's not needed right now, so it's not online. So, but we do want it to be available as soon as it comes back.
Any other discussion? Thank you very much. Roll call vote on the emergency passage, please.
Alderman Redpath?
Aye.
Alderman Gregory?
Aye.
Alderwoman Turner?
Yes.
Alderman Fulgenzi?
Aye.
Alderwoman DeCenso?
Aye.
Alderman McMiniman?
Here, aye.
Alderwoman Connolly?
Aye.
Alderman Donlin?
Aye.
Alderman Hanauer?
Aye.
9 yeses.
And I'll vote aye as well.
Mayor Langsfelder is aye.
A point of discussion, Mayor. So I was trying to read this as the roll call was being made. So I now see what you're referring to, Alderman Hanauer. The agenda in the text of the ordinance says for emergency passage, which means we did give 48-hour notice. Right. It was just kind of in an awkward kind of a way, having given 48-hour notice for an emergency passage.
Thank you. Is there any unfinished business come before the City Council? We do have, I think the Chief or Director McCarty wanted to clarify or give an update on the police cars. Director McCarty? I don't think the Chief's here. Sure.
Thank you, Mayor. There has been some concerns recently regarding the safety of some of our older police cars, particularly as it relates to carbon monoxide. I just wanted to reassure the mayor, the council, and the public and the officers themselves that we're doing everything that we can, going above and beyond to ensure that those vehicles are safe. In the fleet garage, for instance, we have, every time one of those comes in for a PM, it is on the checklist that it is tested. And we have CO monitors and meters in the garage to do that testing. Anytime any officer feels that there's any kind of an issue, we encourage him to go ahead and park the car, pick up another car, and we will bring that in and do a full inspection and do a testing of that as well before it goes back out. We also have several meters in the cars, and we're looking at actually buying other meters that we can keep in the cars that have a digital readout of the actual parts per million of CO that is in the vehicle. The reality of the situation is of most of the concerns that have been conveyed to us when we've inspected those vehicles and we've run the tests have turned out negative. It's been some other issue. So again, out of an abundance of caution, we have many, many steps in place to ensure that there is no safety issue in those vehicles, and we will continue to do that, and we will continue to enhance those safety measures just to ensure that those older vehicles are in fact safe.
Alderman Redpath.
So I'm sure all of us have heard about this all weekend. I know I was out Friday night and was not confronted, but addressed some officers who had some serious concerns. It was brought to my attention that an officer had actually went to the hospital. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
Well, there was an issue related to that. I can't really get into specifics, given we're talking about health of individuals.
I didn't ask about a name. I just said, did an officer go to the hospital for carbon monoxide poisoning?
Chief can answer that with regards
Yes or no
to
answer.
what transpired.
Yes, we've had an officer treated at ER and released.
So, Chief, I hear Director McCarty's questions about the monitors. Are those home monitors used for home use?
Those are home monitors that are in there right now. What happened is when this came to light on the second occurrence in December, we were trying to get something done immediately. There were no vehicle monitors available locally. Commander Dodd reached out to the manufacturer, who said that those monitors measure air and they would work in any environment. So therefore, they were placed in there out of abundance of caution. We're not opposed to buying one specifically for the vehicles. We've reached out to other local departments that have, waiting to hear back, that have had similar incidents on what monitors they've used to see what's there. But the bottom line is we were trying to get something in there that would have an early alert system before there was a danger to the officers so we could address it.
Chief, I know you care about your officers. I know you will take any cars we give you. And the other night you stood up here and said, I'll take any cars that you'll give me. And I don't think the city council or the mayor or anybody else has any reason not to give you the cars, especially if they're not working properly. But we need to know the right answers when it comes to the carbon monoxide monitors. If it's a home monitor, it's not going to work properly in a car. And that's a big concern to us. So we need an in-depth investigation to make sure that we're monitoring them right. If the cars are bad, come back to us.
Oh, no, absolutely.
It's that easy.
Absolutely. We totally agree. We don't want any officers treated at the hospital. We don't want an officer to have to go there. With that said, as I stated last week, this is an aging fleet, that the cars are extremely old. In addition to, after we get the 28 in here, we're still going to have 21 cars with in excess of 120,000 mile average on each car. And as I stated last week, and I was crystal clear, we'll take any car you get. There is a need for them. There is a need, because we're in a 52-week wait cycle. This week, we even went back to our distributorship asking, hey, what are we looking at? Is there a way to pick this up, make it quicker? No. Optimistically, we're looking at May taking possession of them. Then they got to be upfitted. We're probably close to that 52-week model. So the only way around it would be able to hopefully, if there were going to be a reconsideration to purchase additional vehicles, we could look at some unmarked vehicles that would have to be given to middle management and some of the low-profile units and push their marked cars down. So, but that's the only way around this right now. Otherwise, we're waiting for those 28 cars. But as I stated last week, we'll take anything.
So, Chief, of the 21 that are left, are there any that are on the border that need to be pushed over the top?
Well, again, we leave that to the garage. They're the experts on that.
I'm asking you to do a reassessment of those vehicles, and I'm not trying to do the mayor probably agrees with me on this, but the bottom line is that we don't want our officers in any danger, and we absolutely don't want anybody going in the hospital, because we need them on the street.
We totally agree, and I've had that conversation with the garage. The fact is, all 28 could be replaced, because again, if we start the year out with 130,000 miles on them, and we put a 25 to 30,000 miles on them next year, and then we got to wait 52 weeks. If we order next budget year, then we're another 30,000 miles into. These cars are going to be up in the 180,000 mile radius. So to say they need replaced, they need replaced at some point in time. The quicker, the better. The sooner we get rid of the 08s, the better we're going to be.
Thank you,
Alderman Hanauer.
Yeah, Chief. I guess my question is. Was this officer, was he sitting in the car doing reports? Was he idling a lot? And what's the idle policy? I pulled up to places and seen police cars out, and they're sitting there. I know they've got the lockout and the cars are running. And, you know, to me, that's when you would have the problems with carbon monoxide, is when they're sitting still, not when they're in, you know, a route somewhere. I guess my question is for twofold. What's the idle policy, and why can't they shut these cars off? Because, I mean, it costs more for fuel if you know.
So in the wintertime, during the cold or severe weather, we allow them to keep their cars running, okay, because the garage has said it's harder on the vehicles than just to restart them constantly. During the summertime, they should be shutting them off, unless it's a canine vehicle that needs to be on all the time. Obviously, with that, these are some things we are looking at right now about maybe trying to change the policy a little bit. Hey, maybe you're out of the car unless you're using your lights or traffic control or something. Then maybe we do turn them off, you know, even in the cold weather. That's something we'll talk to the garage about, and we'll move forward on that. But again,
I just was wondering if this officer was sitting, you know how, for an extended period of time, and you know, because I would think with the
without getting specifics, because I don't want to call the officer out, because this is not about the officer.
right,
The officer
it's
should
about
not,
the safety of all officers.
but he was idling for a fair amount of time.
Okay.
Yes.
Chief, I just want to confirm that we are going to get some monitors that are made for vehicles and not the home monitors.
We are looking at options out there. We have talked, we are waiting on some callback from other cities on what's out there, because some of the stuff we've researched, even the ones that are card, they say that they give a lot of false positives. So we want to make sure whatever we purchase is going to be effective. To be honest
I'm not
with you,
saying we do it for every car, Chief. I'm saying if we got cars that are questionable.
But for all these older cars is what we
Right.
plan on doing. Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, I'd ask Tim Weir to come up while he's coming up. Alderman Donnelly. Tim Weir is the head of our Public Works garage, or the
Thank you, Mayor.
centralized
Chief,
garage.
before you go, I just echo Alderman Redpath's comments about the monitors. You know, we were told, I think, when the issue first came up, that you know all the vehicles are being monitored and they're below the whatever threshold it is, and then we get a letter that's explains that they're home monitors, and and I know he said it very clearly. Let's just make sure we get the right kind, and then. But I want to on the second part of my question is I want to make sure I understand the schedule for the new cars that are in the budget. Where are we, and when do you expect how many? And so forth?
We ordered 28 cars last July when the state bid was finally released.
Right.
We are still waiting. We were initially told we were about I don't quote me, I want to say around a 40-week delivery time, 42. DC Hamlin's not here today for me to verify. We called earlier this week, yesterday, talked to our distributorship. He said, optimistically, May, but then I got to upfit them. So again, you're talking probably close to July, 52-week delivery time.
These are from last year.
These are from last year.
So how many again? 28. And then how many are in this present budget?
We have no cars in this present budget because we purchased cars out of the OBM capital loan program. There are no budgets. Since I've been the chief, we've been buying cars every 3 years unless it's through a JAG grant or some other kind of special DUI fund, et cetera. So the cars are being purchased out of last year's loan program. We still have not taken possession. There are no cars in this current year's budget to be purchased.
How many?
And to clarify for a couple of the Alderman's questions, these are not just regular cars, okay? These are the Interceptor-type police vehicles, so they're special cars and they have to be upgraded too.
So what is the minimum amount, if you had Utopia here in budget land, that you would have in this year's budget? Minimum amount, number of cars.
On your 10-year plan that you wanted to put
what
forward,
we've asked for
was it
on a
10
10-year plan
year,
is to
or what
buy
was-
12 to 14 marked cars every year and 2 unmarked every year, and that would rotate the cars every 10 years. With the garage's work and the ability to maintain and the take-home program where we can keep the mileage low, we feel that we can get rid of those cars somewhere around 140, 150,000 miles at that point in time, not counting idle time. In a perfect world, as Alderman Connolly said last week, if I was wishing for the moon, I would wish for an additional 21 cars to get rid of all the 08s. I don't think that's possible, but obviously we would take anything. We believe that anything, because a lot of these cars, like I said, the average is still going to be somewhere around 120 to 130,000 miles. After we get them, then we're going to try to get another year out of them. It's going to put us up somewhere around 155,000 miles or more on some of these cars. And then we're going to wait 52 more weeks, unless they somehow decrease the wait time, to get more vehicles. The only option out there right now that we've been told is if we were to change and buy black vehicles that are sitting on the lots right now. Our vehicles are for white because we strap our cars out with white. So if there were money to be allocated because of the crunch that we are in and wanting to retire some of those vehicles, we would probably purchase black. But I got to make it crystal clear, because I know it came up last week when people were saying that, well, the staff's driving, the higher-ups are driving new cars. These cars would go to middle management to push down their cars, which are 17s, and some a few older, to the troops in the fleets. So they would have the newer cars and be able to retire some of those older cars out.
Right. I appreciate you answering our questions. I don't want to be up here in this chair being fleet manager. I don't want that. But what I'd like you to do, if you could, and I'm open to, let's get creative. Let's see, even if it's 2 cars, I don't care what it is. There's other things, as we progress through the year at the city, there's things that we decide not to do and things we decide to do as we move along here, because of especially with the lead time you need to get these vehicles in. Let's get creative and bring it back, and I'd be happy to talk about it with
absolutely.
everyone.
So I would say right now, if we want to make an immediate impact on this problem, I can get 10 black vehicles right now. I would take money right now for 10 black vehicles in a heartbeat. As I said last week, there is a need for these vehicles, but they will not be white. If I'm going to wait for white, I'm probably waiting for another. If you said today I'm going to give you money to buy 10 more white ones, I don't know when I can get those 10 white ones. I have no idea.
Does it matter, the color of the vehicle? I mean,
it would not matter because we could put them in low profile status, but then I don't want people coming up saying, well, you're only giving middle management and your higher ups the new cars, because that was something that was brought up last week.
People are going to bring stuff up all the time.
Exactly.
I would suggest you speak with the budget director and see what you can come up with. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
You know, they were working on a 10-year plan. I think the ones in question, I think, well, Tim Ware can point to it. I think there's probably 3 to 5 cars, so that's what we had a discussion of bringing in 5 of those black unmarked cars and moving that direction. But if you could let us know the with regards to the monitors, with regards to what's your opinion, or what have you seen with regards to the monitors we're using? Are those adequate, or do we need specialty ones for vehicles, or how's that work?
Well, the 28 cars that we have on order are hybrid vehicles. So this is to be the first year for those for general production. And to speak to your question, Councilman Hanar, those vehicles will only run when they need to charge the battery. If they're not being driven, they will shut off and run on battery power with full accessories operating until it needs to charge the battery in the vehicle itself. So we've been told that those vehicles will typically, in a side-by-side test to a gasoline-powered vehicle to a hybrid, in a 2-hour test, it only ran for about 20 to 30 minutes, the hybrid. Started the engine, it shut it off, then it would restart and run. So we're going to be cutting down on the hour meter, because that's an important part of this picture too, because for every hour you have idling, you have to approximately add 30 miles to the odometer. So realistically, we have cars 135, 140, 150,000 miles, but actually in reality are over 300,000 miles with the idle hours. So that being said, you want the answer on the
monitors?
Okay. The monitors, we've suggested, I gave Chief Winslow a copy. It has a temperature setting. It has a readout of parts per million for the monitor. And then it also has an audible and a lamp alarm. So they could be placed in the cars, placed on the visor or some other place where it's readily accessible, and they would go off if they recognize a certain level, where it would potentially be a problem. Now, we have one here that just has a monitor for parts per million. Now, typically, you won't see an alarm go off on this unless you reach the upper level. And by the way, the level for an 8-hour exposure is 50 parts per million. So if you extrapolate that out to a 10-hour or 12-hour shift, so we have not recorded any readings that high. We have had numerous vehicles come in with concerns that they thought were CO problems, but we had, for example, we had one of a valve cover gasket. We fixed that. We had another one that was a burnt blower motor, so we fixed that. So that they smelled an odor, so they brought the vehicle in. Every time the vehicle has been brought in, we have addressed it immediately. And so I propose that we go ahead and purchase the monitors and run them in these vehicles. We can still keep them after we trade out those cars and move them up to the other vehicles, just to make sure it's an extra line of safety for our officers.
But are they monitors specifically for vehicles, though?
They are handheld meters that would be used by a heating or ventilation technician for any carbon monoxide setting.
Okay.
So they would work.
They will draw the numbers that we're looking for.
Yes, they will.
Okay.
And they also can, change the temperature setting on them and everything else. So I think it's definitely what we need to have, because if you called a heating and ventilation guy to come check your furnace at home, just the same type of meter he's going to use.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Is there any other unfinished business coming before the City Council? Any new business? Alderwoman DeSenza?
Yes, I just want to make sure we're clear on the calendar for March.
Yeah, we were hoping to change the date. I think the committee as a whole is scheduled for March 31st, and there's a group coming in on March 24th with regards to a presentation. So we're wondering if the council be okay to move the committee as a whole to that date.
So from the 24th to the 31st?
Go from the 31st to the 24th.
That's what I have anyway.
That's what I thought. That's what I had originally.
That's what I had, too.
Then someone said, no, it's the 31st. So is that okay with everybody? Do we have to take a vote on that, or just a matter of?
It's okay, just as long as it's publicly announced if there's a consensus.
So all in favor of changing the 31st date to March 24th for the committee as a whole meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And then any other new business? Alderwoman DeSenza?
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman McMenamin brought it up earlier in the discussion, so I'm just going to expand on it a little bit. And I feel like we have to have this conversation about every 6 months up here about respecting each other and respecting each other's opinions. And we are all allowed to have our own opinions up here, but what we are not allowed to do is insult each other and call into question each other's character. And 2 weeks ago, someone up here insinuated that I was a liar about something. And if you have a problem with me, we can have a conversation about it. You don't have to be on the record as calling me a liar. It's improper, it's inappropriate, and this is no place for it. Now, we all get passionate about things, and we all get emotional about things we're talking about. But we have to have a level of civility up here, or we don't belong up here. And we've all done it. There isn't anyone up here who hasn't. Well, maybe Alderman Gregory, but he's very new. Give him a chance. Alderman Donlin, the perfect gentleman. But, you know.
Narrowed it down, huh? Wait a minute.
But we, you know, Alderman Fulgenzi. Okay, all right.
All right.
Okay, so there's just a couple of jerks up here. But I think that if we want to be productive, and if we want to move the ball down the court, and if we want to keep things moving, we need to be respectful of each other. And any other, there is no reason for us to bring politics into discussions, which have happened on occasion. There is no reason to call into question someone else's character. That doesn't have a place here. And I hope moving forward that we can all work together in a positive manner. That's what we were elected to do.
Alderman McMenamin?
Well, I'm glad you brought up this topic and this subject, because now you're allowing me to speak to the very same topic, which I would not have done so. But if you recall the situation that night, we had a staff employee that was not here that night. His name is Juan Huerta. I don't know if he's here tonight or not. So on that particular night, he was in the nation state of Panama. His mother was seriously ill, and he was attending to her. And so he was not here to defend himself. And what I remember, and we can go back and listen to the audio, but you, as I remember, you earlier in the meeting, you said that we're receiving lies here.
That's not what I said.
Well,
I've listened to it several times.
You had the floor. Now I've got the floor. So you referred to lies being told here. And what it was about was, it had to do with our warming shelter. And the city does not operate that warming shelter. Salvation Army operates that warming shelter. And at a previous meeting, one or more members of the council had asked the administration whether we have city employees working at the warming shelter. And Juan to my recollection, said no. And what he meant by that was, we've got no city employees working in the capacity of a city employee at the warming shelter. And that's an important distinction. And someone that night said, well, that's splitting hairs. No, it's not splitting hairs. Why? Because when we have city employees, as city employees at the warming shelter, if there's an incident of assault or battery or abuse, potentially there's liability to the city. If any employees at the warming shelter are injured, there's a potential workers' compensation claim against the city. So what I understood, Juan Huerta having said at that earlier meeting, was that the city doesn't have the liability for having employees at the warming shelter. It's all on the Salvation Army. I thought that was a pretty good explanation of why he had made a correct statement that no employees are working as city employees. And during that earlier part of the meeting that evening, Mayor Langfelder, I believe you tried to explain it by it's a misunderstanding, not lies. But so then I got upset when later on in the same meeting, you again repeated the charge that we're being lied to and we need honesty. And you're correct. When you said that, I said, you too. That's all I said, because I thought you were now calling people liars. And so that's what I just want to, have you catch yourself for what you were up to. And so.
What was I lying about?
You were lying that Juan Huerta had lied. You called him a liar.
No.
But let's.
Wrong.
I think everybody has their own opinion, so.
No. I want to be very
true.
clear. I said, we need to hear the truth. Those were my words. I've listened to it 50 times. I didn't say you're lying and you're lying and you're lying.
Well, I've still got the floor. Unless you want to be, Mayor, do you want to recognize?
Well, actually, I could ask Corporation Counsel to distinguish between everything, but I think it's every person's opinion with regards to the context of the conversation. I think, it's a passionate issue we all care about with regards to helping the homeless, and, I think we need to move forward. And with that, I'd recognize Alderman Donlin.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't going to speak on this, but I just, hearing both of you talk about the issue at hand that night, I seem to recall that not only was the question of whether we had a city employee there or not, that was brought up, but the heart of the issue was we were told in the room that there wasn't a problem, and then we were fortunate to have this individual from the community figure out and do some investigations and bring to our attention, which I think is the right thing to do because we have a stake in all of this, that there is a problem. And I trust that that's being addressed. But that was the heat and the spirit of the conversation, that, we were led to believe that there wasn't a problem, and then there was clarification and more information that showed there was. It was really that simple. But getting to your point about decorum in our meetings, I encourage everybody to be passionate about whether it's a particular issue or the budget in general or what have you. Those are important things. And we all should have our opinions, and we all should stand up for what we believe. But there are times when we do get, we'll say, overly excited. There's no question there. But I don't like hearing words like I heard a couple weeks ago. I think there's a better way to put it, a better way to address it. We're not always going to agree. I don't agree with this guy to my left all the time, or John across the way here. Not to pick on you, John, but we don't always agree on everything together. We just don't. But there's a way to do it and a way to not. And quite frankly, if we see things like this in the future, we need to say time out and have the conversation about it, I think, while it's happening.
And with regards to the item, the Inspector General is looking into it, so I'm sure he'll have a report in the next week or two. Alderman Redpath and Alderman Hanauer.
Just as a matter of clarification, the question was asked 3 times, are there any city employees working at the shelter? We didn't ask in what capacity, and obviously they would not be over there in a capacity of a city employee, but he is still a city employee who is working in that role. And that's why that's the way that it came out. And Juan, we're not saying Juan was lying that he was over there working in a city capacity, but he did not, when we asked that question, he did not tell us that he was a city employee working there in a secondary employment position. So that's how that all came out.
Well, I think it goes to the point of using the term liar. I mean, it's pretty strong allegation, and we shouldn't be using that term. I mean, everybody has their own opinion. I think you can tell by everybody's comments tonight. It's a matter of perception. Juan's here. He can come up and defend himself with regards to that. But, that's one thing. When you throw out those strong verbal comments, it's implying. Whether we like it or not, it's implying. And so I think that gets to the heart of it. But really what we're trying to do is figure out what's the best way to serve the homeless. What's the facts? And that's why I called in the Inspector General to sort through the emotions, stick to the facts, and come give the council a report with regards to the operations. Yeah. So I don't know, Director Huerta, if you'd like to add anything to that?
Yeah, first of all, I know that nobody called me a liar. So, I mean, I think we have disagreements, I was out of the country getting texts from people. I wish I was here. I wish I went to the CTK game, see your boy win the state. But, I'm very passionate about the homeless, and I think that I was talking with George Holmes the other day, and I think that when the Salvation Army took this whole project in October, they had a couple of days or weeks to put this together. And I went above and beyond to be there at the shelter and help. And we've done a lot of good work. There's 60 people safe on a mat with a warm meal. And I think that there's a lot of things that went right, and some things went wrong, and some disagreement. But you know what? I don't take things personal. I think that we are all passionate. I think all you guys care about the homeless. I want to continue to work with each of you. I don't have any issue with any director, any alderman. I mean, I work with all you guys. You guys have emailed me, and I've been there for you. If I say something, I do it. And that's what I want to continue. And I do want to continue, even though this whole thing, issue with the homeless disagreement, somebody did something. I told the mayor, I want to continue to help people, because that's what we're here for. I think that...
I want to be recognized.
Okay. So Alderman Hanauer and then Alderman Turner.
Hanauer was speaking.
Real quick.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick. Also, along the same lines, whoever has a gavel, when we have people come up and they just start ripping on members of this council, that's what irritates the living heck out of me. We shouldn't. That should not be tolerated. And we need to gavel. That needs to be gavelled down. And we all take turns. That shouldn't be tolerated at all. But they don't have the right to come up and just rip on us and put us down and all kinds of stuff. I just don't think that that's right. I think that the decorum is the same from there. And we've had people that have come up and just really kind of disparaged the council, and we've let it go, and I just don't think that should happen. So, just wanted to point that out.
Alderwoman Turner.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it sets a bad precedent for any city employee to work on a project that is being funded by the city. I just think that there should be a prohibition with regard to that, and I know that someone has to sign off on secondary employment. And if it's a situation where a city employee is asking to have secondary employment on a project that is being funded by the city, it should be prohibited.
Any other discussion on this topic?
I guess
Alderman McMiniman.
I would agree with that as a general rule, that we've just got to be real careful when we put when a city employee has a secondary job that's being funded by the city and they're not acting as a city employee. We've got to be very careful about those situations. Now, Juan, you've been a volunteer there. You're not when you're at the women's shelter, you're a volunteer. I've been a volunteer there serving a meal Alderman Gregory's been a volunteer. So we're city employees, the three of us, but we were there as volunteers. And no one was saying that we were, working as city employees, but we were there as volunteers. And I think we want to encourage that to the extent that it makes sense, so long as we're not getting into controversial activity. There's a jeopardy to whatever we do. Any city employee can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the alderman can be at the wrong place at the wrong time. So a lot of judgment goes into it, what activities we participate in and what activities we try to avoid.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Thank you.
Any other new business? One item is congratulations, Lanphier High School girls basketball team. They're heading to state. They play, I think, Friday at 1 o'clock at ISU.
Yes, indeed.
That's right. That was Alderwoman Turner. The other thing, this time in history, in 1837, is when the city of Springfield became a capital, thanks to the Long Nine, one of which was Abraham Lincoln, of course. And then I think that is it.
Well, Mr. Mayor, speaking of the Long Nine, a Rolling Meadows Farm issued a new brew Saturday night. They had a leap year party at Maldener's, and they issued the Long Nine brew.
Oh, nice.
Brewed at Rolling Meadows Farm, and it really promotes our local history and perpetuates Abraham Lincoln, because he, at the age of 28, he was able to, as the leader of that pack of 9, representing Sangamon County, which at that time was 3 or 4 times the size it is now. Back in 1837, he was able to, as you pointed out, Mr. Mayor, relocate the capital of Illinois from Vandalia to Springfield, and it was a really significant accomplishment for a very young legislator by the name of Abraham Lincoln that had no structured education, no formal education. He did that.
Is that an alcoholic drink, Joe?
Well,
Alderman?
Yeah, all things in moderation. All things in moderation.
What time were you consuming it?
And the
sure
event was also attended by Sheriff Jack Campbell and our state's attorney Dan Wright. It was a very mannered crowd there that night.
Very good.
Thank you. That's cool.
And then also shout out to our Mayor's Youth Council. They had a town hall, thanks to Bonnie Drew for helping coordinate that last week. And there's about 70 youth that had participated, but they'll be coming before City Council and giving a recap of their ideas that they brought forward in that discussion. This time I'd like to, there's 3 people signed up to speak. Sean Taylor, with regards to Urban Farm Project. Is Sean Taylor here? Next is Dorothy Taylor, regarding curfews in neighborhoods. And then the third one is Anthony Gregory and John Crafton, with regards to workforce funding. If you'd like to come forward and state your name and address for the council, we'd appreciate it. And if you'd address the comments to the chair, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, y'all. City of Springfield. How you doing, Mayor? My name is Anthony Gregory, representing New Beginning Barber Academy, 810 South 11th. I'm a barber by trade. I invested into a barber school, academy, and the Barber Academy has graduated 6 and employed 6 young men, which have to be felons. Excuse me, I'm the first time speaking up here, so my apologies. Well, but right now I'm requesting or asking for help. This is a grassrooted business. I have put the financial statements and everything, and the mission statements for everything is we're on the east side of Springfield that needs hope and needs some opportunity. And I have presented that, but right now we have reached some hardships because I'm asking the students to pay out of pocket, which some have, and we have worked with each other. And so right now we're not eligible for financial aid until this upcoming November will make 2 years. And so this is one of my students, now co-worker, John Crafton. He can explain some of his experience by working with me.
Thank you.
First of all, good evening to all that are present, Mayor, aldermen, and people from the city who are also here. I'm grateful for this opportunity to be here. I'm originally from Chicago. I just did 10 and a half years in a federal penal institution. Did my time, came home, and ran into some hardships, as we do. But luckily for me, I didn't get discouraged because I ended up stopping by New Beginnings Barber Academy. And he gave me an opportunity when I didn't know where I was going to be able to feed my kids. And I got 5 children. Pardon me. In all honesty, if that opportunity wasn't there for me to seize, then I wouldn't be standing here. As a graduate of New Beginnings Barber Academy, I'm also providing for my 5 children. And it's the first time I've ever made any kind of progress as an effective member of society. And I get passionate about this because the only thing I've asked for was opportunity. I didn't make all the right decisions in life, and I can't blame anybody or society or no one for no reason for that. But that opportunity was there for me. And me being 40 plus years old, and I got that opportunity, just imagine what it would do for the youth if this place was able to sustain. Like you said, it's a grassroots operation. You know what I'm saying? And when you think about grassroots, you think about building from the grass up. But even with grassroots, they need to be watered. And right now, we're just asking for a little water. And I'm not just a barber. I've become an author. I advocate to the youth. And I teach life skills. I'm a life coach. I've done work with the Summit of Hope at the fairgrounds. I've done work with Fifth Street Renaissance since I've been home. I've did many seminars. And being able to cut hair has been therapeutic to me in so many ways. And it would just be sad to see that go to waste because I know what it did for me and 5 other guys who have done long prison terms. And we want to be able to extend that olive branch past just guys who are coming home from prison. We always big on how we fix problems after they happen. I just think New Beginnings Barber Academy, if given the opportunity, can keep, as I call it, preventative measures in play so they won't have to wait till they come home from doing 10 and a half years in prison for an opportunity. And sometimes our biggest dreams, biggest hopes, biggest aspirations can be, how can I say, sidelined because of finance. And fortunately for me, I caught this at a time where he was keeping it afloat. You know what I'm saying? And we worked together, we scratched each other back, and we pulled through. I moved down here from Chicago, and I've been here since March of last year. On the 26th of this month, on the 18th of this month, I'll be 42. On the 26th of this month, I'll be home a year. If it wasn't for the opportunity that this school gave me, I can't stand before you and say my circumstance would have been the same. And the only thing I'm advocating for is for somebody else to get that same opportunity that I got. And the only way that can happen is if we get some help keeping these doors open. It's not beyond reach. We're not asking for the stars. We're just asking for a way to get to them. And if you can find it in your heart to do that, to give somebody the same opportunity I got, man. And I'm willing to do whatever I can to continue. I love doing community service. You know, I've learned about places here in Springfield that I wouldn't have known about if I wasn't doing community service at. I am a felon 3 times, did 10 and a half years in prison. And something as small as New Beginnings, something that people don't even really know about, helped me rebuild my life. And I'm living my life in a manner where I go to work, I come home, I don't look over my shoulder. And when I came home, I was working at county market. I got fired because they couldn't keep employees. I didn't know where my next, this opportunity, I'm just saying this opportunity can help people on a very diverse plane. Help New Beginnings Barber Academy. It's more than just a barber school. It could be somebody's way of life like it is, man.
Well, we appreciate you sharing your experience with us. And I did talk to Anthony earlier today, and I think he spoke with Valley Liaison. We'll work with you to come up with a solution with regards to that. But Alderman Redpath?
I was just wondering, how many people have been through the academy so far?
We have 6 graduates. Right now we have 4. About 6 or 7 have dropped out because of financial reasons, because the class is from Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people run into hardships because they got to apply to work and take care of the household and still pay tuition.
So how does the classes work? I mean, is it you're on a semester type of thing, or is it how long does it take to go through the academy?
It's 1,500 career credit hours, which typically takes 9.5 to 10 months. That's full-time. Part-time would take 16, 18 months. But when they receive $750, they're able for internship when they can be employed inside a barbershop, and their hours would be accredited.
Now, are they licensed when they come out?
No, they would get a diploma. But this state is we are accredited.
Is there a license for barber? I don't know.
Yes, it is, sir. What they get a diploma to where they can work for 6 months under the diploma, and they sign up, get the continental test, and send them a testing date back, and that's when they go take their state boards. When they take their state boards and they pass with a 75, it might be a 78. When they pass, they're able to work in the state of Illinois, and then they can get work in the United States of America. It's called reciprocity.
Sure. This is a compelling story, and I do support it. I hope the mayor can help with something.
Please.
Go ahead and go with Sean first, please.
Alderman Gregory?
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, for coming up and just speaking to the council. I did meet with Ms. Val earlier, and we had a good conversation. So we're gonna do everything within our power to try to find something. I can't promise how fast or whatever, and we'll get out in the community and go to our business members, man, and try to help this thing stay afloat. You said you would get your accreditation for financial aid about November.
Yes, November. You have to be sustaining for 2 years. So we just now reaching upon that point right now. Mm-hmm. And like John was saying, we have the community service at the Boys Club twice, at the
Absolutely.
Matheny Withrow, Brandon Drive, Chatham churches, and Christ Methodist on 17th and Ash. So we're doing our due diligence in the community. And I just did Salvation Army Saturday. Well, we just did Salvation Army Saturday at the Blue Cross Blue Shield fair event.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I commend you for your work in the community. It is a great asset, not only your training program, but Mr. Ward's training program. So, we're working digitally to, try to connect these dots to try to get you some help, okay? We definitely need that in our community. We want to, invest back into our community and try to be proactive and not reactive, like you said. So, we're doing the best I can. All right,
thank you.
Appreciate you.
Alderman Hanauer?
Just a quick question, and I don't know if is this in the area that we put down for the marijuana money? Is that in that track or whatever that we did? And if so, would this not be something that would be a good fit for that, because you're trying to help some economic development? These gentlemen, it sounds like you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to teach people.
Yes.
But I don't know. I just was wondering if that was.
I'm not sure if it's
an avenue.
in the exact area, but I know it's right there. I know we don't. I have to speak to corporate counsel, but I think we don't have access to that until July, if I'm not correct.
Correct. That starts in July with the state. But what we'd be able to do is talk to Mr. Anthony Gregory about TIP dollars. We believe you can use TIP dollars for that as long as the individuals that you're educating stay within the TIP area. And he mentioned potential opportunities to make that happen.
Yes.
So that's something we'll have to take a look at. The other one immediately is community development block grant funds, but we'll try to, I think the need is now, as opposed to, July when those come up, but there's a potential for training dollars in November. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
Through either the federal or state, I can't remember which.
Financial aid matches when they just come sign up with their Social Security number and they tax bracket, and they be able to get training through the barber program, through that student loan.
Great.
But to credit to what he said, we're trying to be able to sustain and maintain until that actually happens.
Right.
Because it's more than just about the money. It's about keeping this thing afloat so that the opportunity still exists until whatever respective date that help can come through. What do we do until that happens? So I just wanted to, reiterate that.
Yeah, excuse me, I got one more thing. And I'm very active in the community. Like, I do have a past, but that's turned to be a positive to help the youth. They look up to me. They really do, because they know where I come from. And now, like, I got the barber school, and I got a barber shop in White Oaks Mall. Who would have thunk it? So that's all I got to say.
Yes, Alderman Fulgenzi.
Have you been to the county yet for their economic development funds?
I talked to Ms. Val before.
Over to the county.
No, sir.
You might try the county. They have economic development funds for startup businesses and things like that. I don't know what time frame they have them in, but I'd suggest that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Well, thank you again for coming. And
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for having us.
Is there anybody else wish to address the council? Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Say nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Connolly.
Oh, thank you. Hey, Tim.
Hey. Have a great evening.
Do you see a red umbrella anywhere? A red one. I lost an umbrella.
I was trying to reach over because some plain girls. I know, and I don't have your cell phone. I gotta get it right now. Yeah.